yourself in a state where that's the only thing that you focus on. Presentation, making phone calls, finding customers, you in the gym. You know, we always see if you see people working out, you always see people taking selfies in the gym and doing all of that, right? But they're not going to get the most results out of that because they're not focused, right? So, who's going to back me up on this one? Muhammad Ali. He said, I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. I remember when I first started, when I wrote my first book, right? It's called The Fastest Way to Win in College. So, just for those who are not the most familiar with my story. So, I'm from New York City, right? Straight out of the hood. You know, South Bronx. I've seen everything from from gang violence, murder, prostitution, drugs, everything that you could think of. Some things that no kid should have ever seen, right? And so, as I went through that lifestyle, I did have one cousin who inspired me to go to college, which is the reason is how I ended up out, in Virginia. So. Ended up coming out here, but I still sort of had that mentality, like that, that hood mentality. So much so, I see people on campus, about colleges, right? I see people on campus, with rocking all the same color, throwing up signs. I'm like, oh, what's this? I'm like, what's going on here? They got gangs in college. I didn't know that. Stupid me, I didn't even know. That's fraternity and sororities. Had no idea, right? So that just show you the level of like where my mind was at. So. But as I started going through college, I cared about the girls, I cared about smoking, I cared about drinking and all that stuff, right? Because that's what I used to do when I was back home. But I remember me getting a phone call one day from my mother, and she says, Terrell, you're grown now, and I'm paying for your college. College is very expensive. So being that you're grown, you have to pay for everything else yourself. All right, and that's starting with the cell phone. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, well, I didn't say that to her, but that's what I wanted to say. And so she was like, yeah, so you might have to get a job, or do what you have to do to get the money so you can pay for the cell phone. So at this point in time, I'm trying to figure out like, wow, because I've always been used to my mother giving me money a lot as I was growing up, so I had little side jobs here and there, maybe worked at a restaurant here or there to make a little money, but I was never really, I always knew my mother would have my back, so now I had to figure out. And sometimes when you're looking for opportunity comes your way, but you have to be looking for it. So I remember, I joined the organization on campus that mentored freshmen, right? And that's sort of how I started getting into, the mentoring and the coaching, doing things like that. So this is like me, it's like sophomore year of college, probably around maybe 2008. And I had a friend approach me and said, you want to make some extra money? I'm like, yeah, what you got? He said, well, I'm with a company now, it's called Prepaid Legal, right? Now Legal Shield. He says, we're Prepaid Legal. He said, but you can make some extra money. I'm like, yes, I need it, because my mother just cut me off from everything. So I got part of the company, but one of the things that I didn't know about, multi-level marketing or just business or being an entrepreneur is like, you really have to put in work. You can't play around, right? So I'm still in a mentality like, every weekend I just want to, drink, chill with my friends, my boys, my homegirls, whatever. But it's like, you got to go to this conference, you got to do that. So I remember one time they dragged me out to a conference, right? All the way out in Oklahoma City. So I'm with them, I'm looking, whatever, okay. On the way back is what changed my life. And that's what put me on this journey to being an entrepreneur. That's what put me on this journey to really learning and really taking coaching and mentoring seriously. So I was listening. They was playing like personal development CDs inside of the car, and I was listening to a gentleman named Jim Rohn, right? And Jim Rohn, one of the world's most renowned life coaches, motivational speakers, right? Respected by everybody who's out today. One of the things that he said was, everybody suffers one of two pains. Either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I remember that, and I was like, oh my God, like it's like the heavens opened up. The birds was chirping. For some reason, I just got an epiphany like, oh my God, productivity, getting things done, disciplining yourself to make it happen, that is the key. And that's when, at the time, I didn't really specifically know it was productivity, but I'm like, I know I have to get things done, and I got to stop playing around. I would rather inflict pain on myself to be successful, instead of me just letting life come to me and me just accept anything that comes to me in life, and then life brings the pain to me, because we all know life is gonna bring pain to us, right? We understand that, right? If we're not proactive about it. So at that point in time, I'm like, okay, now I'm back on campus. I'm on fire. I'm paying my cell phone bill. I'm paying everything. Get back on campus. I'm excited. I go out. I start talking to people. Well, as you know, being in business, and when you're going out, and you're trying to recruit or talk to a lot of people to be interested in your idea and something, it don't always work out the way you want it to work out, right? So I'm talking to people. I'm getting rejected. I'm talking to people, I'm seeing them, they walk up, oh, that's Terrell, you gonna talk to me about that prepaid legal stuff, right? And as the more I get rejected, the more people are saying negative things about me, the more people are he calling, oh, click, like, I don't want to talk to me, you're gonna talk to me about that, right? The more I did that, it made me like, yo, this is, I'm not cut out for this life. So right when I was about to quit, I was about to call my homeboy and say, listen, I can't do this no more. I said, let me try one thing. I'm just going to throw a Hail Mary pass, and I'm going to try this last thing. I said, let me actually listen to what they say, and maybe I start making some money. So I started reading. They told me to read certain books. I started reading the books every week. They told me to hop on calls with people who was making hundreds of thousands of dollars in the company. I started listening to what they were saying. I started going to the conferences, and then the more that I actually started being active and started listening and started implementing the things that they were telling me, I started making money. I was one of the highest. I was one of the people on the campus that was making the most from that company out of everybody. I was making hundreds of dollars a week while I was on campus, and that was me just listening and implementing. So that's what really set on my journey. Like, okay, this is what it is. Now I need to learn how to be productive. I need to learn how to get things done. So I started reading a lot of books. I started mentoring more students, and that's what set me on this trajectory today. So fast forward, maybe about 8 years later, I said, which was maybe around 2 years ago, between the last 2-3 years, I said, okay, I want to start taking this a little bit more seriously. So I want to help more students. So I'm the author of a book called The Fastest Way to Win in College. It's out on Amazon right now and Barnes & Noble. And I started going out on a speaking circuit, speaking at different schools, colleges, doing book signings and everything. But I realized that I wasn't hitting my full potential, and I really couldn't put my finger on it, right? So I said, I want to switch it up. And now this is probably maybe within the past 2 years, I said, I want to do something different. I want to work with a different market. So that's when I said, you know what? I want to start working with entrepreneurs. I want to start working with business owners. And, since then, I just, I went all in. I learned everything. I did everything that I could to not only help, but and the funny part is, they always say hindsight is 20/20, right? So me looking back, I realized why I didn't really hit my full potential. I wasn't completely passionate about it as I'm passionate about this. As I'm passionate about productivity, I'm passionate about success. I want to help everybody, but I said, I think this is more me, more my market, right? So that's my story. Now, as fast forward, when I was writing my book, right? When I first started writing my book, one of the things, I wrote my book in 3 months, by the way, right? But I wrote it because I did it in 3 months because I lost my job. So one of the things that I realized was as I was writing, I said, well, I got a lot of time to write my job. I'm writing my book. So I started writing it, but at first I was taking way too long to write a book, to write a few pages. It was probably taking me like a week just to write maybe like 1 or 2 pages. I'm like, why is it taking me so long? I realized that during the day I was always so distracted. This is my beautiful wife right here, and from her from her giving me housely duties, right? Because when you don't have a job, you got to inherently do the stuff around the house, right? So for me doing house stuff, and me just being on Facebook, Instagram, doing all the social media stuff and emails and looking at stuff on YouTube, I was realizing that I was wasting a lot of time, and that's why I wasn't getting most of my work done as far as this book. But then once I started learning about bubble sessions and started learning about me focusing for a specific amount of time without distraction, I finished my book in 3 months. If you listen to a lot of authors, they take years to write their books, right? So, and my book is probably close to maybe between 200 to 300 pages. So that's the concept of bubble session. Is you being able to stay focused for a certain amount of time. I recommend you stay focused. That's the reason why when we first started, I said we're gonna go for 50 minutes, take a break. Because after, really, the science says after about an hour, you know, your mind starts wandering, you know, and it's hard for you to focus. But 50 minutes is the optimal time for you to be able to focus. And remember, one of the things too that I said is, if you don't know if you can focus for that long, or if you don't know if you can work with that, okay, alter it. Start with 30 minutes. If it's hard for you to focus, you know, or you might have, you know, ADHD, or it's just hard for you to, you know, to make things, you know, to focus on one thing. I don't care. Start with 20 minutes, and then work your way up. Maybe next week you start with, then you go 25 minutes. Then the next week you go to 30 minutes, and you work your way up that way. Okay, but it's very important that you go to that you do these bubble sessions. Okay, and then I got another quote by Muhammad Ali. He says, "The fight is won or lost far away from the witnesses, behind the lines in the gym, and out there on the road long before I dance under the lights." So he's winning in the gym. He's winning, you know, in the ring, sparring and doing all those things way before the cameras is on, way before the lights are on. Okay, so, and he's doing that because he's completely locked in and he's completely focused on these bubble sessions.